The alarm's going off, man. Stop hitting snooze. I need you. If you're looking to feel like warm and fuzzy inside, like I'm your guy, so they're in my top 20 EHL teams for sure. There's emotion, there's hatred. This is not like a very friendly series. It's like SpongeBob when he's got like the napkin and like the potato chip. Like that's how I feel. Listen, Colson, I didn't have fun. Everything in my body hurts right now. The team that has the lead in the second period is just not going to win that game. There's no need for air quotes. He's tardy all the time. It's the American thing to do. I was alive, just not very. No, don't get pucks deep. Hang on to the puck. Pass the puck. Shoot the puck. Are we live? Are we live? We're having a good time. JKP, baby. JKP. Hello, E-Show, and welcome into another installment of the Summer Coaches Series edition of the podcast. For the very first EHLP edition of the summer, we have head coach of the defending champs, the New Hampshire Avalanche, Josh Bourdon. Thank you for being here, Coach.
Thanks for having me, Jake. Appreciate it.
Hope you like the look today as well, Coach.
I do. I noticed that right off. You got the whites out. I love it.
Absolutely. I didn't get to bust it out for Coach Sorella because I was in New York when I interviewed him, but I do have it here in Mass, so I figured I'd rep it for the Coach of the Year, of course.
Oh, he gets all the fun, so it's okay to drop a surprise here every now and again.
True that. Coach Bourdon needs some love. We'll start off with I want to talk a little bit about the 24-25 season. It was a huge jump for you guys from your inaugural season as head coach. Disappointing finish in the playoffs, but given how successful that year was and how many guys you brought back, do you feel like it set the stage for what was an incredible 25-26 year for you guys?
In a lot of ways, yeah. The biggest thing from that season, I mean, it was a great year, but like the biggest thing that we learned and that, you know, we wanted to remember was the importance of recruiting and then the planning for every possible scenario. I'm not sure if you remember, but like that was the year where teams throughout the league had a number of illnesses after that Philly showcase. And heading into the playoffs, our team was decimated between illnesses and injuries. I'm very fortunate as an assistant general manager here to be provided with a lot of flexibility and freedom to make a lot of different moves, really at any time throughout the year. So we made sure this past season, to learn from those mistakes, and we tried to plan for, every possible scenario. And I think, obviously it paid off throughout the year.
100%. And when you talk about the recruiting aspect of it, Coach Sorella likes to say that he recruits to replace. Would you say that you have kind of adopted the same mentality with your team?
Yeah, he's been obviously a tremendous role model for me. I think we thrive off each other, learn off each other. And, for me, I really recruit heavily for character, compete, and specific skill sets. Our EHL and Premier teams, as you know, they're historically full by June, which allows us to immediately get to work throughout the off season, which gives us a tremendous advantage. Really proud of the partnership that we've established with Jamie Phillips from Ghost Athletica. He's been doing all of our off-season workouts. We're doing leadership classes throughout the summer, and there's just constant activity in our group chats, from the beginning of June right up until the start of the year. And I think that really helps set the tone with our team and our culture.
Absolutely. And speaking of the start, how much do you credit the returners that you had for this past season for the culture that, occurred right out of the gate for your team this year?
Yeah. If you look at our teams, like, we do a really good job with finding high quality people who are skilled. And many of the people that I'm historically going after are looking to play at the highest level possible. And I'm very fortunate that a lot of these players and their families are kind of willing to put that label on the side and take a chance on our process and trusting in our process. Our process is proven. They know that if they come play for me, that they're gonna develop, and if they end up moving up and playing for Coach Sorella, that it's as close to a guarantee that you're going to play NCAA as you can get out there in any league in the United States. So we're very fortunate to find those families who, like I said, they're willing to put the label on hold or put it aside, the short-term label for long-term, promise.
Absolutely, and we're going to talk a lot about the development and elevation that you guys have from P to E soon enough. First, I just want to talk about this past year and the start that you guys had. Did you feel like this team was special out of the gate? Like when you took a look at them on the ice with both teams out there at training camp, did you start to picture like what was possible for this group?
I try and stay present and not look too far ahead. There's a lot of good teams and good players and great coaches. And, the thing that I was impressed with right away was the level of compete. And then the way they pushed each other and competed throughout the year. Constant effort every day, constant support of each other, both on and off the ice. And I was super grateful and happy for the amount of individual and team goals that we were able to accomplish. And I'm sure we'll get into it, but like it's really our number one goal was to move up as many guys as possible from P to E. And, this past season, you'll see that 12 premier guys from my team earned EHL spots. Obviously, the league and playoff championships was nice. But like we scored the most goals, had the lowest goals against. The special teams was insane. And, I'm a former goalie, so I was really proud of all of our goalies with, goals against under 2. And, but the biggest thing that stuck out to me was in the area of growth was the bond between the guys. These guys, we're still in our group chat. That'll never fold. We've put it on the side. We've started anew this year, but we'll keep that thing going forever. It was a special group, and those guys love each other, and it's just a lot of fun to have them around.
Yeah, they were one of some of the most fun group to be around. I remember tossing the football with them and Miles at the Philly showcase when a lot of those guys were getting EHL minutes, so they were sitting for the P games, and we were hanging out. And they loved being an Avalanche, of course. And like a lot of the Avalanche teams, the bulk of the losses, which there weren't that many this year, obviously, but they came in the first half of the year. So even with the team that was accomplishing all you guys were accomplishing throughout the season, what were the big areas of growth that they still were achieving amidst all the success?
The thing that I was really impressed with was the way the players like competed throughout the year. They were constantly pushing. They supported each other on and off the ice, and we set goals, both individual and team goals. And what was really impressive was we accomplished nearly every goal that we set out to achieve. Moving 12 guys up to EHL spots on our team and throughout the league. The league and playoff championships were obviously, an unbelievable feeling. But scoring the most goals, giving up the least goals against, our special teams, the amount of shots we had on net per game. As a former goalie, I took a lot of pride in every one of our goalies giving up less than 2 goals against. But the thing that really sticks out as far as growth is the relationships that all these guys had. It was the bond. It was their love for each other. And, that's something that I'll never forget.
100%. And you alluded to the depth of the team earlier, and it was unparalleled this year in the EHLP. In those, the firefights that you guys had against the Seahawks and Express, and even the playoffs down the line against the 87s, how much of an advantage did you think it gave you guys in those nitty-gritty games?
Well, as I alluded to earlier, like our depth was, extremely important and strategic. I think it was vital to our success, not just for our EHLP team, but also for the future of our EHL team. We've done a really nice job at creating a system where we develop, advance, and commit players to NCAA. And the numbers don't lie. If you look back at our history, I think we average around 16 NCAA commitments each and every year for going on a decade now. And it's super impressive. And I'm just proud of not only the players, but the families, who recognize that we truly do have a blueprint here, something that's proven and, unmatched around the country.
Absolutely, like you said, one of the as close you can get as a guarantee to climbing the ranks, junior hockey to NCAA, and given what your team like we said, was accomplishing the win streak to end the season. Was it ever difficult to keep raising the bar for them, keep them motivated as they kept on achieving more and more? How did you guys, how did keep that group hungry?
Yeah, so no, you mentioned the win streak. I mean, we really didn't focus all that much on those types of details. We were just trying to figure out ways to keep everyone playing, and it was imperative for us that like we make it as fair as possible. Every kid was giving their best effort all the time, so it was important for us to not only get guys in the lineup so we could showcase their talents and develop them, but also trying to manage, people's health and making sure that they were all good to go. And if you look at the last year's team, you'll see a team full of guys that virtually all had equal minutes, which is something I'm really proud of. And if you look at the points, nearly every kid on that team had a point per game. And then only one player, we were talking about him earlier offline, Lincoln Manson, who's coming back. He's the only kid on our squad who played in every single game throughout the year. Um, so we had guys that were all getting a fair amount of equal time, and everyone that was contributing. And I mean, for the most part, you could insert any guy anywhere at any time against any opponent, and like we had a pretty good shot at a decent outcome. So great group of guys. Everyone contributed, and just a lot of fun to coach and be around.
Absolutely. And, speaking of coaching, they weren't the only ones achieving things. You got the Coach of the Year honors this year. The major steps that you've taken with the program in all of your 3 years here, the guys you've moved up to the EHL level and onto college hockey. What were some of the first things you thought of when you found out you had won, and what were you hearing from the boys on the team?
My first reaction was gratitude. A lot of gratitude towards my wife and my kids and Chris Sorella. Certainly the players, not just this team but the teams prior. uh, this award, it definitely doesn't happen without the players and their willingness to give their best every day. Every single person in the organization, has, as I mentioned earlier, individual and team goals. And you know we're just grateful that as individuals and a team we were able to hit almost everyone. So I'd say gratitude and uh, still being humble.
Absolutely. And when it comes to that, the P to E elevation we were talking about, it doesn't get better than the Avalanche. Matthew Topham, Ryan Doobie, David Wood, Evan Guerin, Max Warfield all got good amounts of EHL time this year, with some of them getting really extensive time. In the new year, Topham, Warfield in the earlier half of the year, all those guys got lots of time. With how much focus you guys put on elevating, and how many you expect to elevate, how much value do you think those guys got in those experiences?
The development, it's part of the blueprint for our program design. And, it was an amazing season. We had 9 players that were promoted to our top team. So this year on our EHL team, you'll see 9 familiar faces from last year. In addition to that, I was able to help 3 other players um, earn EHL roster spots, at other teams. Um, and then beyond that, that's not where it stops. Like there are guys, every kid who plays here is a different goal. And we had a number of kids who came to us, and they didn't fit our historical goals, if you will, to keep them within and develop. Some of them wanted to go play club after the season, even though we strongly feel they could have continued here and eventually played NCAA. So we helped quite a few kids from our team go earn club spots next year. And then there were kids that wanted to play in other locations, which mean that they had to unfortunately leave our league. And I'm extremely proud of that, because I think for me and this group of guys, no matter where they wanted to go, whether it was to play for Coach Jarella or to leave our league entirely and head to a new location, I gave them my very best. I made the phone calls on their behalf. And, I think if you ask any kid on last year's team, um, they're all going to be happy, not with only the season, but also with the work we did on their behalf after the season.
100%. And with how many options there are for players these days, and a lot of them want to stay internal and move up to Coach Sorella's team. Some of them just want to play EHL wherever, whatever it is. And a lot of players more and more out of the P are going straight to club hockey. So, what is the messaging like between you and players to keep those options and opportunities as open as possible?
Yeah, I think the big thing is trust, right? Like if they know that they can come to us at any time and give us information or their goals or tell us their needs, and if they know that we're going to be in their corner and do everything we can to help them achieve their goals, then they're more likely to come to you, and they're more likely to go off into the world and say good things about not only us as leaders but us as a program, and talk well about their experience. So you know these guys, their goals change throughout the year. They evolve. They morph into different things. So, the big thing is trust, and like knowing that they can come to us, and whatever it is that they want to do, we're going to do our best to help them, achieve it.
Absolutely. Well said for sure. And we have to talk about the postseason run itself. Your team was probably pushed harder than it had been all year long. Season on the brink, back-to-back series, losing game one against the Seahawks, game two against the 87s. How did your team deal with those new challenges in the moment?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest lesson from the playoffs last year was, it's a completely separate animal, right? Like everything goes out the door. It's a completely different season. Everyone's good. Everyone wants to win. You're playing, lots of different variables. I think in the end, though, we still did great. Obviously, I think, we won 6 games, lost 2. Tremendous playoff record and experience. And, I think looking back, we definitely got a little overconfident at times. I take complete responsibility for that. As a leader, I think it's important to try and instill confidence in your guys. And at times, perhaps we went a little bit far and or too far. And we also like a lot of teams, we dealt with some pretty important and big time injuries. But um, I think. I think the big message was control what you can control, and just to continue to give your very best. But if you rewatch those games, and I'll admit I've watched them a few times. Like for the most part, regardless of the score, like we continued to do our thing, and we had a lot of those games and for the most part in control. So very proud of those guys. They were tenacious and confident.
Yeah, and you mentioned injuries, and the biggest ones, at least for storyline wise, was Ryan Doobie going down for the final series. Noah Dayak slots in to his spot on the number one line and scores moments into game one. It was a pretty cool thing to witness and be a part of. Losing out on not only one of your best players, but honestly, probably a top 3 to 5 player in the EHL Premier. At worst, probably 1, 2, or 3. Was there any panic from you or the guys, and how confident were you in that? No matter who slots in anywhere, that you guys were again in control.
So one of the things I try to do is find specific roles, and recruit. I'm very meticulous with who I bring in. It starts with character and compete, and those core values. But then from there, we're trying to figure out different skill sets. And on the bench, we had a backup to Ryan Doobie. We had a backup to Danny Morrison. So we had a sniper, we had a playmaker, we had a grinder, we had an offensive defenseman, a defensive defenseman. I try really hard to create a lineup where if one guy goes down, we can insert another guy, and that style can really blend well, and so there's no big disruptions. And Noah was waiting his turn. He had come back from a shoulder separation, so he could have been in anybody's lineup, but he wasn't. He was waiting his turn because our guys were humming along, and when Doobie went down, he took his moment, and obviously he did really well. But just building a team that has specific roles and then playing these people, uh, giving them the time that they deserve all year long, and then just having them prepared so when their moment comes, they can make the most of it. And they did.
Oh, they definitely did. Heading into that third period, tied at 2 against the team that really made you guys look human for the very first time in game 2. What was your message to the team heading into that final period, knowing that it was win a period, win the league?
Yeah, I mean, there's no real secret there. It was, honestly, it was a lot of the same, more of the same, really. It was just, give your best effort and be there for each other and believe, right? Like beyond that, like that's been our message. With every recruiting call, you talk about Miles and my kid Sasha and even little Brooksy, who's turning 3 in a couple weeks, like they've got that memorized. Whether you're in my personal family or my extended family, like those are the core values that we live by. And win or lose, if you just do that, you can't really ask for anything more. And we recruit guys that are raised on similar values. And what you get is a room full of resilient people who thrive under pressure. So yeah, it was closer than we would have liked. But they were prepared and they were ready.
And it just makes it more exciting anyway, right?
Yeah.
Sounds like you're still not over the anxiety.
We could have padded it a little bit more,
Yeah,
but yeah,
fair
it's
enough.
fine.
It was for we needed 2 game 3s on that Saturday or Sunday, whatever it was. I don't even remember if it was a Saturday or Sunday this year, but
Saturday in Providence, yeah, always a Saturday.
okay. So now when you look back and things have set in now, and we're closer to turning the page to the new year than we are to raising that championship trophy, what stands out most when you think of that 2016?
Without a doubt, the brotherhood and the bond that these guys shared. We had a number of guys that made tremendous amounts of sacrifice to play here. You had guys who could have been power play guys in a lot of places, who were on our fourth line. Um, Ryan Doobie and Danny and Woody, like they were a third line group all year long. We had guys who turned down offers in higher leagues. So a tremendous amount of sacrifice, and it was to get the chance to play for Coach Torella one day and to win. And obviously it paid off for them, and it paid off in a lot of different ways. But I think if you asked any one of them, they would tell you without a doubt it was the best year of their lives. And every single one of them has told me that the friendships, like they could hang out with anybody. And I've never had a team where, there's little cliques on every team, but like all that was erased. And it happened before we started doing well. Like it happened in the summer and it happened in preseason. Like they came here like that. And when you start to recruit certain individuals, they tend to hang out with and be friends with similar individuals. And so what you get is you get a program full of those individuals, and that's what you're seeing.
Absolutely, a program full of people that push each other to be their best is what we get to see for sure. And while we're on the subject of looking back, I got to call your very first game that you coached with the New Hampshire Avalanche almost 3 years ago now at the Worcester Ice Center. It was a wild back and forth game, a great way to inaugurate the Josh Bourdon era of the Avalanche premiere. But how did you end up joining the New Hampshire Avalanche on the coaching staff?
Oh my God. So like 25 years ago, right? I'm 45. So about 23 years ago, I had an opportunity just fall into my lap. I ended up taking over a junior program. I was the head coach and general manager. Honestly, I was probably the youngest head coach and GM in junior hockey history. During that time, I actually coached against Coach Sorella. He was, I think he was at Walpole at the time. And I got out of it and was doing other things. And, I was in politics and healthcare. And then 10 years later, so I'm living in Southern New Hampshire at this time. And then 10 years later, my wife is like, hey, come meet the neighbors. Like, guy, hockey guy and CrossFit family. And I was into that too. So I'm like, okay. So I go across the street and out from his garage walks Chris Sorella, who I hadn't seen in forever. So I'm like, oh my God. So, but I'm still out of hockey. I'm raising a small family, doing political stuff and just other things. My life's in a different direction. And we're talking back and forth and throughout the years, and maybe someday, who knows. And then COVID hits, and like a lot of people, I'm reflecting on my life. And I actually went and got a master's degree in education. And so I left my job and went into teaching. And then long story short, teaching was fun, but I was definitely interested in having my classroom be an ice rink versus the traditional classroom. So eventually, I made the jump, and it's been a great decision. I have no regrets, and I'm super thankful and happy to be working with Chris. He's a lot of fun.
I did not know that you guys were neighbors. I did not know that. I knew you were going off into other ventures, but I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah. Oh, I was shocked, as you can imagine.
I'm sure. And over the first year that you were in the league, were there any big lessons that you came away with? Any did you have a plan in mind, or was it just about building this thing, making the steady improvements, month by month, really?
The biggest lesson, and it's really hard to do this sometimes, especially in the moment, but the biggest lesson I would say is like defining your core values, like what's important to you, and then like creating standards and sticking to them. And then, you got to recognize when you lower the standard for whatever reason to hit the budget or, fill a gap or whatever, if you lower your standard, then that's a new low, right? So if you want high level people, and if you want to, like, whatever it is you want, you can never waver, regardless of the outside pressures that may come your way. For me, it was to identify standards or core values, stick to my standards, never waver, and then have faith that it'll all work out. And like in the end, I think I mentioned it earlier, like good people hang out with good people. So when you recruit really high character, high compete people, and they have a good experience and you do it right, they'll talk. And then all of a sudden, like, the whole thing gets a little bit easier. And that's what I did, in my private life when I was working, in healthcare, recruiting different nurses and doctors. And it's the same methodology. You have to hold yourself to a high standard, and then, never waver from who you're trying to bring in. At the end of the day, like, I'm with these individuals more than I am my own family. And I think it's important to be happy because it's hard. Coaching's tough. Oh, it's hockey. It must be nice. Like, no, it's a huge challenge. And so, for selfishness, like, I want to be happy. So I want to bring in good people that I can be around a lot. Yeah, I would say that I'll leave it there.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more that that's the most important thing is surrounding yourself with good people. And you mentioned your family, and to wrap this thing up, they have gotten to be a big part of the process. Whenever I'm at the ice den, I usually run into one of the kids, like you said, and Miles obviously is hugely identified with this Avalanche team, and they took him under their wing this year. So how much has that added to the experience of being a part of the Avalanche for you?
Well, having junior players, like, we bring them to the house. having him in my home and my family always being at the rink, and we've essentially created an environment where, you know, the team is my family and my family is kind of part of the team. You know, and we learn from them like they learn from us. And, you know, I think that the parents of like these young men, they really appreciate knowing that they're sending, you know, their children off to, you know, a coach and a father and a family man who like, who's authentic and, you know, who puts core values and all the things that we've discussed above, you know, winning any one particular game. And, you know, they're all going to end up being citizens and, you know, most of them will be parents and husbands and whatnot. So we're just, you know, we're trying to prepare these guys for the future. And, you know, we get to do that through one of the best sports in the world. And, you know, like, I guess in closing, I'm grateful to be a part of it and trusted with it. It's a big responsibility. And I love having my family around them and them around my family. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Well, I know Coach Terrell will chirp me for saying this, but you're one of the best additions that the EHL has had since I've joined. And we've had a lot, obviously, but we're super grateful for you. We were happy to see you raise that trophy this year. The team and yourself were so well deserving, and looking forward to seeing you and your family a ton again this upcoming year.
Thanks, Jake. I appreciate your time, and you do an outstanding job. The guys always appreciate an opportunity to talk with you, and it makes our league a little bit unique and a little special. So keep up the good work. Thank you,
man. I'll see you at the ice then for sure.
Yep. Take care.
Thanks for listening to The E Show, presented by the Hockey Podcast Network. Learn more about us at easternhockeyleague.org and follow us on all of your favorite social media platforms. Also, be sure to subscribe and get notified when our next podcast episode is released.